The moving truck had barely pulled away when the shouting started. Every window on the quiet street seemed to tremble with the sound of another argument spilling from the little blue house on the corner. Neighbors peeked through their curtains, children stopped riding their bicycles, and even the mail carrier paused with an uneasy glance. Everyone already had an opinion about the woman who had just moved in, and none of them were kind. But none of them knew that one sentence, spoken in frustration months later, would change two lonely lives forever. Before we begin this emotional journey, if you believe in kindness, forgiveness, hope, and second chances, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who needs encouragement today, and subscribe to our channel to become part of our community that believes every heart deserves another chance. Gavin Mercer had lived on Ashcroft Lane for nearly 12 years. He liked routines, quiet mornings, trimmed hedges, and predictable days. Since losing his wife, Claire, to illness 4 years earlier, he had built invisible walls around his heart. He spoke politely to neighbors but rarely invited anyone into his home. His daughter, Nora, lived several states away with her own family, calling every Sunday without fail. Gavin insisted he was doing fine, though the silence inside his house grew heavier every year. Then came Celeste Rowan. She arrived with mismatched furniture, dozens of flowerpots, an old golden retriever named Murphy, and enough noise to make the entire neighborhood complain within a week. She accidentally parked in front of driveways, played music while gardening, laughed louder than anyone expected, and never seemed embarrassed when something went wrong. If a ladder slipped, she laughed. If groceries spilled across the sidewalk, she laughed. If someone criticized her, she smiled as though she had learned to survive much worse than harsh words. Most of the neighbors avoided her. Gavin tried to tolerate her. Every Tuesday morning, Murphy escaped through the front gate and wandered into Gavin's yard. Every Thursday afternoon, Celeste practiced repairing old furniture outside, filling the street with hammering sounds. Every Saturday she attempted complicated gardening projects that somehow always ended with soil scattered across the sidewalk. At first Gavin simply sighed. Then he started complaining. He complained about the barking. He complained about the noise. He complained about the weeds that somehow crossed the property line. Celeste always apologized sincerely and promised to do better. She usually did. But somehow another little disaster always appeared. Months passed, and their relationship settled into an unusual routine of irritation mixed with reluctant cooperation. When Murphy wandered over, Gavin returned him without smiling. When Gavin's trash bin tipped over during strong winds, Celeste quietly stood it upright before he returned home from work. Neither of them admitted noticing the small kindnesses. The neighborhood had already decided who Celeste was. She was the difficult neighbor. The loud one. The impossible woman. Only Mrs. Ellison, the oldest resident on the street, quietly observed something different. Every afternoon she watched from her porch as Celeste picked up litter that wasn't hers, watered flowers planted in the community garden, and secretly left fresh bread on the doorstep of an elderly widower who struggled to cook for himself. She never told anyone. She simply watched. One bright spring afternoon, Gavin came home exhausted after a difficult day repairing heating systems across town. He discovered Murphy happily digging holes among the roses Claire had planted years before. His patience shattered. He marched across the lawn, returned the dog, and finally exploded. He told Celeste that no one could possibly put up with her. He said she was exhausting, careless, impossible, and the reason the neighborhood would never truly welcome her. The words came faster than he intended. Each one sharper than the last. Celeste stood quietly while he emptied months of frustration. She looked down for a moment. Then she lifted her eyes, smiled gently through visible sadness, and softly replied that he still did. The words landed harder than any argument. Gavin suddenly realized she wasn't defending herself. She wasn't angry. She wasn't mocking him. She was simply telling the truth. Despite every complaint, he always returned Murphy safely. Despite every disagreement, he helped move heavy furniture when she couldn't lift it alone. Despite insisting he wanted nothing to do with her, he never ignored her when she genuinely needed help. He walked back into his house carrying something heavier than anger. That evening he couldn't stop thinking about her answer. A few days later he noticed Celeste struggling to carry several bags of groceries after her car unexpectedly broke down. Without saying much, he carried them inside. For the first time he stepped through her front door. The house surprised him. It wasn't chaotic. It was warm. Family photographs covered one wall. Some had faces turned downward inside their frames. Others had clearly been removed altogether, leaving faded outlines on the paint. A single framed picture remained upright. It showed a smiling teenage boy. Seeing Gavin notice it, Celeste quietly explained that the boy was her son, Owen. She hadn't seen him in almost 8 years. She didn't elaborate. Gavin didn't ask. But curiosity quietly replaced judgment. Over the following weeks, their conversations slowly grew longer. He learned she had once owned a successful furniture restoration business. He learned her marriage had collapsed after years of emotional abuse. He learned that during the divorce, misunderstandings, legal battles, and bitterness had driven a painful distance between her and Owen, who had believed stories that painted her as unstable and impossible. She had spent years writing letters that were never answered. Every birthday she mailed a card anyway. Every Christmas she wrapped a gift that was always returned unopened. Yet she never stopped hoping. Gavin finally understood something. The laughter everyone misunderstood wasn't carelessness. It was survival. If she didn't laugh after life knocked her down, she feared she might never stand again. Not long afterward, Gavin injured his shoulder while working. Simple tasks suddenly became difficult. Without being asked, Celeste mowed his lawn. She brought homemade soup. She drove him to follow-up appointments. She repaired a loose porch railing before he even noticed it needed fixing. Neighbors watched with confusion. The woman they called impossible was quietly caring for the man who had criticized her most. Slowly, opinions began changing. One afternoon, Mrs. Ellison organized a neighborhood picnic. For the first time since Claire's passing, Gavin attended willingly. Celeste spent the afternoon helping children decorate cupcakes and repairing a broken picnic bench instead of sitting down herself. People laughed with her instead of at her. Someone finally noticed what had always been there. Generosity. Months passed. Autumn arrived in brilliant colors. One crisp afternoon a familiar car stopped outside Celeste's house. A young man stepped out. He looked nervous. He stood at the gate for several minutes before walking toward the porch. From his window, Gavin recognized the face from the photograph. Owen. Neither man could hear the conversation. They only saw long pauses. Tears. Uncertain expressions. Eventually the front door opened wider. Mother and son disappeared inside together. Hours later Owen left carrying several boxes. But before driving away, he hugged his mother. It wasn't a perfect reunion. It wasn't a complete healing. It was simply the first step. For Celeste, that was enough. The following Sunday she knocked on Gavin's door carrying fresh cinnamon bread. Her eyes were brighter than he had ever seen. She shared that Owen wanted to meet again the following weekend. He wasn't ready to erase the past. But he wanted to understand it. Sometimes healing began with listening instead of judging. Gavin smiled. A genuine smile. One that surprised even himself. As winter approached, Gavin finally admitted to Nora that he had made a real friend. His daughter laughed with relief. She confessed she had worried about his loneliness for years. When she visited during the holidays, she insisted on meeting Celeste. The two women instantly connected. Watching them laugh together, Gavin realized something remarkable. Life hadn't replaced what he lost. It had simply made room for something new. One bright afternoon near the end of winter, the neighborhood gathered again, this time to celebrate the reopening of the renovated community garden. Much of the restoration had quietly been organized by Celeste, though she accepted almost none of the credit. During the celebration, Mrs. Ellison stood before everyone and thanked the volunteers. Then she surprised everyone by thanking Celeste for reminding the neighborhood that people often carry invisible burdens. Silence settled across the crowd. One by one, neighbors apologized for judging her too quickly. Some admitted they had believed rumors instead of learning the truth. Others simply thanked her for every unnoticed kindness she had shown. Celeste cried openly. Not because she needed their approval. Because after years of feeling unwanted, she finally felt seen. Later that afternoon, Gavin and Celeste sat together on a freshly painted bench overlooking the blooming flowers. He thought about the angry words he had spoken months earlier. He wished he could erase them. She gently reminded him that if he had never said them, neither of them might have realized how much they already cared. Sometimes the hardest conversations uncovered the deepest truths. Gavin understood that patience wasn't pretending people were perfect. Kindness wasn't ignoring flaws. Love, friendship, and forgiveness meant choosing to stay even after seeing someone's imperfections. The woman everyone called difficult had taught him how to open a heart that grief had locked away. And the man who believed he wanted only peace had discovered that real peace often arrived disguised as inconvenience. Before we reach the end of this story, we'd love to hear from you. Have you ever misjudged someone before discovering the kindness hidden behind their struggles, or has someone given you a second chance when you needed it most? Please leave a meaningful comment below and share your thoughts with our community, because your story may encourage someone who feels misunderstood today. Years later, newcomers to Ashcroft Lane often asked how Gavin and Celeste had become such close friends. The older neighbors smiled, exchanged knowing glances, and simply said that sometimes the people who challenge us the most become the ones who quietly help us heal. No one mentioned the arguments anymore. No one remembered the complaints. What remained were shared meals, blooming gardens, family reunions, laughter carried by the afternoon breeze, and two lonely hearts that found hope where neither expected it. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, leave a meaningful comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss another emotional journey. Remember that every person you meet is fighting a battle you may never see, and sometimes one act of patience, one word of forgiveness, or one unexpected second chance can change a life forever.